The ship was cold. Park Do-yoon stood at the window and looked at the space station growing larger. It was massive. Bigger than any building on Earth. Bigger than any city. The station floated in the black emptiness like a metal flower with 1,000 petals. He was the first Korean soldier to join the Galactic Coalition's training program. He was also one of the first humans ever. That thought made his stomach tight, not from fear, from something else. Something that felt like hunger. The transport ship docked with a soft thump. Do-hyun picked up his bag. It was small. He did not bring much. Clothes, a photo of his mother, a book his father gave him before he died. That was all. The airlock opened. Cold air rushed in. It smelled strange, clean but also wrong, like metal and flowers mixed together. A tall creature waited for him on the other side. It was beautiful in a strange way, very thin, very pale. Its bones looked hollow, like a bird's bones. Its eyes were large and silver. "I am Lyra," the creature said. Its voice was soft like wind. "I am Valari. I will take you to the commander." Do-hyun bowed slightly, a habit from home. "Thank you. I am Park Do-hyun." Lyra looked at him for a long moment. Her silver eyes moved up and down his body. She was studying him, like a scientist studies a bug. "You are smaller than I expected," she said. Do-hyun smiled. He was used to this. "I get that a lot." They walked through long hallways. The station was full of aliens. Do-hyun saw creatures with 4 arms, creatures with scales, creatures that floated instead of walked. Some were huge, some were tiny. All of them looked at him as he passed. He heard whispers. He did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. They were surprised, confused. Some of them laughed. He kept walking. The commander's office was at the center of the station. The doors were 3 times taller than Do-hyun. They opened slowly, and he stepped inside. Commander Garth sat behind a desk made of dark metal. He was Kreth. 4 arms, thick muscles, skin like gray stone. His eyes were small and yellow. They looked at Do-hyun the way a lion looks at a mouse. "So," Garth said. His voice was deep. It shook the floor. "This is the human." Do-hyun stood straight. "Yes, Commander." "Lieutenant Park Do-hyun, reporting for duty." Garth laughed. The sound was like rocks falling. "Duty, yes. Let me tell you about your duty, human." He stood up. He was almost 3 meters tall. His 4 arms were thick as tree trunks. "The coalition has existed for 3,000 years, Garth said. "We have united 47 species. We have fought wars across 100 star systems. We have seen empires rise and fall." He walked around his desk. Each step made the floor shake. "And then your species discovered faster than light travel. And the coalition said, 'Let us welcome them. Let us teach them.' So here you are." He stopped in front of Do-hyun. He looked down at the human like Do-hyun was a child. "Do you know what classification your species received?" "Tier 7, the lowest possible rank for a spacefaring civilization." "Do you know why?" Do-hyun did not answer. He knew why. "Because you are weak," Garth said. "You require 8 hours of unconsciousness every day. Your bodies cannot regulate temperature properly. You break easily. You heal slowly. You die from things that other species do not even notice." He leaned closer. His breath was hot and smelled like copper. "You are here as a courtesy, nothing more. Do not expect to keep up with real soldiers." Do-hyun looked up at the commander. He did not blink. "I understand, sir." "Good. Lyra will show you to your quarters. Stay out of trouble." Do-hyun bowed and left. In the hallway, Lyra walked beside him in silence. After a while, she spoke. "You did not argue with him." "No, most species would. The Kreth respect strength. They expect others to challenge them." Do-hyun shrugged. "I am not most species." His quarters were small. A bed, a desk, a window that looked out at the stars. It was enough. Lyra stood at the door. The dining hall opens at 0600. Training begins at 0800. I suggest you rest. The journey was long. Thank you. She started to leave, then stopped. May I ask you something? Yes. Why did you volunteer for this program? You must have known how we would see you, how everyone would see you. Doan set his bag on the bed. He looked out the window at the endless darkness. My father was a soldier, he said. He used to tell me something. He said, the dog that barks loudest is not the strongest. The strongest dog is the one still standing at the end. He turned to face her. I am not here to bark. I am here to stand. Lyra did not respond. She simply nodded and left. Dain checked his watch. It was 2300 station time. He should sleep. His body was tired from the journey. Instead, he dropped to the floor and began doing push-ups. 1, 2, 3. His muscles burned. His arms shook. 20, 21, 20-2. The commander's words echoed in his head. Weak, fragile, decorative. 50, 51, 50-2. He kept going. The floor was cold against his palms. Sweat dripped from his face. 100. He stopped. His chest heaved. His heart pounded. Then he started again. 1, 2, 3. Outside his window, the stars watched in silence. They had seen many species come and go. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had never seen a creature quite like this, a creature that refused to stop. Lyra could not sleep. This was strange because Valari always slept well. Their bodies were efficient. When they were tired, they rested. When they were hungry, they ate. They never wasted energy on unnecessary things. But tonight, her mind would not stop working. She kept thinking about the human, about the look in his eyes when he said, I am here to stand. At 0400, she gave up on sleep. She walked to the observation deck to watch the stars. But when she passed the training room, she stopped. The lights were on. She looked through the window. The human was inside. He was on the floor, pushing his body up and down, up and down, up and down. His face was red. His shirt was dark with sweat. Lyra checked her tablet. The station records showed that Park Do-hyun had not left his quarters since 2300. That was 5 hours ago. Had he been exercising this whole time? She watched him for 10 minutes. He did not stop. He did not slow down. He just kept going. Up and down. Up and down. Finally, she entered the room. Do-hyun looked up but did not stop. Good morning, he said between breaths. It is 0400. Most species are asleep. I know. You should be resting. Your species requires significant sleep. I slept enough. He finished his push-ups and stood. His legs shook slightly. He walked to a machine with heavy weights and began lifting. Lyra watched with growing confusion. Her scanner was running. She could see his heart rate. It was dangerously high. She could see his muscle tissue. It was tearing. Tiny rips forming in the fibers. You are damaging yourself, she said. Do-hyun grunted as he lifted. That is the point. I do not understand. He set the weights down and wiped his face with a towel. When humans exercise, we break our muscles down. Small tears. Tiny damage. Then our bodies repair the damage. And when they repair it, they make the muscles stronger than before. Lyra processed this information. It seemed inefficient, wasteful. Why damage yourself just to heal? The Valari do not do this, she said. I know. Your bodies are perfect the way they are. Efficient. Elegant. He picked up the weights again. Human bodies are not perfect. So we have to make them better ourselves. He continued lifting. Lyra continued watching. Over the next 2 weeks, she observed him every day. She told herself it was for science, for research. The coalition had never studied humans closely before. She was gathering valuable data, but the truth was simpler. She was fascinated. Every morning, Do-hyun woke at 04:00. He did 200 push-ups, 200 sit-ups. He ran 10 kilometers on the track that circled the station's outer ring. Then he lifted weights until his arms could barely move. After that, he attended training with the other soldiers. He was the smallest one there, the weakest. The Kreth warriors could lift 10 times what he could. The Umi strategists could think 5 times faster. Even the Valari, who were not known for strength, were more graceful and precise. But Do-hyun never complained. He never made excuses. He just worked harder. One day, Lyra reported her findings to Commander Gorath. The human appears to be malfunctioning, she said. He deliberately damages his body every day. He pushes himself far beyond safe limits. I believe he may be mentally unstable. Gorath laughed his rumbling laugh. Let him break himself. It will only prove what we already know. Humans are weak. They do not belong here. Lyra left the commander's office feeling unsatisfied. Something about his answer bothered her. That night, she found Dr. Yoon Somi in the medical bay. Somi was the human scientist assigned to the station. She was older than Do-hyun, calmer. She had kind eyes and a warm smile. Dr. Yoon, Lyra said, may I ask you some questions about humans? Somi looked up from her work. Of course. Please, sit. Lyra sat on a chair that was too big for her thin frame. I have been observing Lieutenant Park. His behavior confuses me. His training? Yes, he damages himself constantly. Every day he tears his muscles, exhausts his body, pushes past every reasonable limit. Why does he do this? Somi smiled. It was a sad smile, but also proud. We call it training. It is how humans have survived for 200,000 years. Survived what? Everything. Somi turned to face her fully. Do you know what Earth is like? Our home planet? I have read the reports. Class 4 planet. Diverse biosphere. Somi laughed softly. Class 4. That is a polite way to say death world. 70% of Earth's surface is covered in water that we cannot breathe. The land is filled with predators, poison plants, and extreme temperatures. Earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes. Our own sun gives us cancer if we stand in it too long. Lyra's silver eyes widened. How did your species survive? We adapted. Not through evolution. That takes too long. We adapted through will, through stubbornness, through training. She leaned forward. A human body is weak, yes. But a human body that has been trained? That is something different. That is something dangerous. Lyra thought about this. So when Do-hyun damages himself, he is sending a message to his body. He's saying, this is not enough. Be stronger. Be faster. Be more. And his body listens. That is remarkable. That is human. Lyra returned to her quarters that night with new understanding. She pulled up her observation data and looked at it again. The pattern she had seen as malfunction now looked different. Day 1. Do-hyun lifted 50 kilograms. Day 7. 55 kilograms. Day 14. 62 kilograms. His body was getting stronger. Not by much. Not quickly. But steadily, surely, like water wearing down stone. She thought about the Kreth. They were born strong. They did not need to improve. They simply were. She thought about the Valari. They were born efficient. They did not waste energy on unnecessary growth. They simply existed. But humans were born weak. And instead of accepting that weakness, they fought against it. Every single day, Lyra looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a death world, a planet that tried to kill its children every single day. And those children refused to die. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt something she had never felt before. She felt afraid of humans, and also, strangely, impressed. The alarm screamed through the station like a wounded animal. Do-hyun was in the middle of his evening run when the red lights started flashing. He stopped immediately. Around him, aliens of every species froze. Fear spread across their faces. "Hull breach in Section 7, a voice announced. "Emergency. Hull breach in Section 7. Do-hyun ran toward the command center. His legs burned from the exercise, but he ignored them. By the time he arrived, the room was chaos. Commander Gorath stood at the main screen, shouting orders. Lyra worked frantically at her station. Dr. Yoon was already there, her face pale with worry. "What happened?" Do-hyun asked. Gorath barely looked at him. "A micrometeor strike. It punched through the outer hull in Section 7. The emergency bulkheads should have sealed automatically, but they malfunctioned." On the screen, Do-hyun could see the damage. A hole in the station side, air rushing out into space. And trapped on the other side of the broken bulkheads, a group of figures huddled together. "The UMI engineering team," Lyra said. Her voice was tight. 12 of them. They were doing repairs in that section. "How much time do they have?" "Minutes. Maybe less." Gorath slammed his fist on the console. The metal dented under his strength. "The bulkheads can be closed manually, but the control mechanism is in the maintenance corridor. It is too small for Kreth bodies." "Send the Volari," someone suggested. "The manual crank requires 200 kilograms of sustained force. No Volari is strong enough." The room fell silent. On the screen, the UMI engineers pressed themselves against the far wall. The air around them grew thinner by the second. "How long do they need someone to turn the crank?" Do-hyun asked. Gorath looked at him with irritation. 15 minutes, continuous, without stopping. I will do it." The commander laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "You? Human, you have been awake for 18 hours. You completed your exercise ritual this morning. Your body requires rest. I do not care what my body requires. You will collapse before 5 minutes have passed." Do-hyun stepped forward. His eyes met Gorath's. The human was small. The Kreth was massive. But in that moment, something in Do-hyun's gaze made the commander hesitate. "Those are living beings trapped in there," Do-hyun said. "I am not going to stand here and watch them die because you think I am too weak." Gorath stared at him for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. "The maintenance corridor is through that door. You have 15 minutes. Do not fail." Do-hyun ran. The maintenance corridor was narrow and dark. Pipes and cables lined the walls. The air was cold and tasted like metal. Do-hyun squeezed through spaces that would have stopped any Kreth. He found the manual crank at the end of the corridor. It was a large wheel, designed for Kreth hands. 4 handles stuck out from its center. A display on the wall showed the bulkhead status. Open. Do-hyun grabbed 2 of the handles. He pulled out. Nothing happened. He adjusted his grip. He planted his feet. He pulled again, putting his entire body into the motion. The wheel moved, barely, just a few centimeters. Pain exploded through his shoulders. His arms screamed in protest. His muscles, already tired from the morning's training, begged him to stop. He kept pulling. In the command center, Lyra watched the human's vital signs on her screen. His heart rate was climbing. 120 beats per minute. 140. 160. "He is pushing too hard," she said. "His cardiovascular system cannot sustain this." Dr. Yoon stood beside her, her hands clasped together. "He knows. Then why does he not stop?" "Because he is human." On the screen, They watched the bulkhead slowly closing, centimeter by centimeter. The UMI engineers saw it moving. Hope appeared on their amphibious faces. 5 minutes passed. Dahyun's arms shook violently. Sweat poured down his face, dripping onto the floor. His vision started to blur at the edges. 10 minutes. His heart rate hit 190. His body released adrenaline in quantities that should have been dangerous. Every cell in his body screamed at him to stop, to rest, to survive. He thought about his father, about the day the old man had carried him 10 kilometers through a snowstorm to reach a hospital, about the words he had spoken through frozen lips. You do not stop. You never stop. Not until it is done. Dahyun pulled harder. 12 minutes. The bulkhead was almost closed. Just a small gap remained. Air still rushed through it, but slower now. 13 minutes. Dahyun could not see any more. The world was just darkness and pain and the feeling of the metal handles cutting into his palms. 14 minutes. He heard someone screaming. It took him a moment to realize it was himself. 15 minutes. The display changed. Sealed. Dahyun let go of the handles. He collapsed onto the floor. His chest heaved. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst. He lay there in the darkness for a long moment. Then, slowly, he pushed himself up onto his hands and knees. Lieutenant Park. Lyra's voice came through the communication system. The bulkhead is sealed. The engineers are safe. Medical teams are on their way to you. Please remain still. Dawn did not remain still. He got into push-up position. What are you doing? Lyra demanded. Her voice was high with confusion. You nearly died. Your body is in critical condition. You need to rest. I only got to 87 this morning, Dahyun gasped. I owe myself 13 more. He did 1 push-up. His arm shook so badly he almost fell. 2, 4. This is insane, Lyra said. Dahyun kept going. 10, 11, 12, 13. He reached 100. For a moment, he lay on the floor, breathing hard. Then he started again. 1. He whispered in the command center. Gorath watched the human on the screen. The massive Kreth commander said nothing. His yellow eyes were wide. His forearms hung loose at his sides. He had seen many things in his long life. He had seen warriors fight and die. He had seen heroes perform impossible acts. He had seen species rise and fall, but he had never seen anything like this. A creature so weak, so fragile, so utterly broken, and still refusing to stop. Dahyun reached 100 push-ups again. He collapsed onto the cold floor of the corridor. The medical team found him there 5 minutes later, unconscious, a small smile on his face. He had done 200 push-ups because his body told him he could not, and he did not listen. Dahyun woke up in the medical bay. White lights, soft beeping, the smell of clean chemicals. For a moment, he did not remember where he was. Then everything came back. The alarm, the corridor, the crank, the push-ups. He tried to sit up. Pain shot through every muscle in his body. He fell back onto the bed with a groan. Do not move. Dr. Yoon appeared beside him. Her face was tired but relieved. You tore 37% of your muscle fibers. You had a small cardiac event. Your body temperature dropped to dangerous levels from exhaustion. Dahyun blinked. The UMI engineers? All alive. Because of you. He relaxed slightly. Good. Somi sat down in a chair beside his bed. She looked at him with an expression he could not read. It was somewhere between anger and pride. You know, she said, when they sent me here, they told me to observe and document. They told me not to cause trouble. They told me to prove that humans could be trusted. Sorry. Sorry? She laughed softly. Dahyun, you saved 12 lives. You did something no one else on this station could do. You proved that humans are not weak. You proved that we belong here. I just did what needed to be done. Yes, that is exactly what you did. And that is exactly why they are afraid of you now. Dahyun frowned. Afraid? Before Somi could answer, the door opened. Lyra entered the room. She moved slowly, almost carefully, like she was approaching a dangerous animal. Lieutenant Park, she said, I have been researching your species. That sounds like you. She sat in another chair. Her silver eyes studied him. I have read about your history, your wars, your sports, your cultures of competition and self-improvement. I have read about things called marathons and ultramarathons, about people who run for days without stopping. Some people do that, yes. Why? Do-hyun thought about the question. It was a simple question with a complicated answer. Because we can, he said finally. Because our ancestors survived by being stubborn. We could not outrun our predators. We could not outfight them. But we could follow them. For hours. For days. Until they were too tired to run anymore. Lyra leaned forward. Persistence hunting. I read about this. It seemed like a myth. It is not a myth. It is how we survived. We are not the fastest creature on Earth. We are not the strongest. But we can keep going longer than anything else. And the push-ups? When you were told to rest? Do-hyun smiled slightly. It hurt his face. My drill sergeant back on Earth used to say something. He said the body is a liar. It tells you to stop long before you actually need to. And you believed him? I tested him. I pushed past the point where my body said stop. And I found out he was right. 90% of our limits are not physical. They are mental. The body can do more than the mind believes. Lyra was silent for a long time. Her silver eyes looked at something far away. The Valari are efficient, she said finally. We do not waste energy. When we are tired, we rest. When we are hurt, we heal. We never push beyond our limits because there is no logical reason to do so. That makes sense. But watching you, she shook her head. You push beyond every limit. Your body told you to stop, and you did not listen. You were dying, and you kept going. You finished and then did more. She looked at him directly. I do not understand this. But I think I understand why other species are afraid of you now. Why? Because you cannot be stopped. Because you do not obey the rules that every other species obeys. The rule that says when you are broken, you stop. She paused. You get broken and you become stronger. You get tired and you keep going. You reach your limit and you ignore it. Do-hyun said nothing. That is terrifying, Lyra said quietly. And also beautiful. That evening, Commander Gorath came to visit. The massive Krath had to bend down to fit through the medical bay door. He stood at the foot of Do-hyun's bed, his forearms crossed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. I owe you an apology, Gorath said finally. The words sounded strange coming from his stone-like face. I called you weak. I said you did not belong here. I was wrong. Do-hyun shook his head slightly. You were not entirely wrong. Humans are weak compared to Krath. Perhaps. Gorath moved closer. His yellow eyes were serious. But you did something today that no Krath could do. Not because we lack strength. We have more strength than you. But because we would have stopped. Stopped? When our bodies tell us we have reached our limits, we listen. We conserve energy. We protect ourselves. He paused. You did not protect yourself. You broke yourself. And somehow, you kept going. The engineers needed help. Yes, and any Krath would have tried to help. But when our muscles failed, we would have stopped. When our hearts screamed in pain, we would have listened. Gorath's voice dropped lower. You did not listen. You treated your own body like an enemy to be defeated. He reached out one of his massive hands. It could have crushed Do-hyun's entire body. Instead, it rested gently on the human's shoulder. Today you saved Kreth lives. Umi lives. You did what my warriors could not. His voice was thick with something that might have been respect. The coalition classified your species as Tier 7, the weakest. Today I learned that classification is meaningless. Thank you, Commander. Gorath straightened. When you are healed, I would like you to train with my personal guard. I want them to learn what you have. Not your techniques. Your spirit. I would be honored. The commander left. Do-hyun lay in the darkness, looking up at the ceiling. He thought about his father again. About the snowstorm. About the words that had kept him alive. You do not stop. You never stop. Not until it is done. He had lived those words today. And somehow, against all expectations, he had survived. His arms still burned. His heart still ached. Every part of him begged for rest. He closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he would do push-ups again. Because that was what humans did. They kept going. 1 year had passed since the incident in Section 7. The Galactic Coalition had changed. Not in obvious ways. The stations still floated in the void. The ships still traveled between stars. The different species still worked together as they always had. But something was different now. Something in the way they looked at humans. Park. Do-hyun stood in front of a classroom. 20 students sat before him. Kreth warriors with stone skin. Valari scientists with hollow bones. Umi strategists with webbed hands. And others. Species from across the galaxy. They had all come to learn from him. Welcome to Endurance, Do-hyun said. This is the hardest course on the station. Most of you will fail. The students shifted in their seats. A young Kreth in the front row laughed. Fail? We are Kreth. We do not fail. Do-hyun smiled. It was not a kind smile. We will see. He had become an instructor 6 months ago. The first human to hold such a position in Coalition history. His course was simple. No weapons. No tactics. No strategy. Just one lesson. How to keep going when everything tells you to stop. The Kreth failed first. Their bodies were strong, but their minds were not trained to ignore pain. When their muscles burned, they stopped. When their lungs screamed, they rested. They had never needed to push through barriers before. The Valari lasted longer. They were efficient. They calculated exactly how much energy they had and used it carefully. But when that energy ran out, they had nothing more to give. The Umi were clever. They tried to pace themselves. They tried to find shortcuts. But there were no shortcuts in Do-hyun's class. By the end of the first week. Half the students had dropped out. By the end of the first month. Only 3 remained. Do-hyun did not teach them techniques. He taught them philosophy. You are already stronger than you think, he told them. The only enemy is the voice that tells you to stop. That voice lies. It has always lied. Your job is to stop believing it. Some students understood. Most did not. That was acceptable. Do-hyun did not expect to change the galaxy. He just wanted to plant seeds. On the anniversary of the hull breach, a ceremony was held in Section 7. The area had been repaired long ago. New metal covered the old wound. But the memory remained. A crowd gathered. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species. They had come to see the unveiling of something new. A statue stood in the center of the corridor. It was made of dark metal, the same kind as Commander Gorath's desk. It showed a human mid-push-up. Arms bent, muscles straining. Face set with determination. The plaque at its base was written in 47 languages. But the message was the same in all of them. Told to rest. Did 100 more instead. Commander Gorath gave a speech. His voice rumbled through the corridor like distant thunder. 1 year ago, I believed humans were the weakest species in the coalition. I was wrong. Strength is not measured in muscle or bone. It is measured in will, in spirit, in the refusal to surrender. He turned to Do-hyun, who stood nearby in his dress uniform. Lieutenant Park Do-hyun showed us what humans truly are. Not weak, not fragile, unstoppable. The crowd applauded. The sound echoed off the metal walls. Afterward, Do-hyun received the Coalition's Medal of Perseverance. It was a small disc of silver metal with strange symbols etched into its surface. He was the first human to receive any Coalition honor. He held it in his hand and thought about his father, about the long walk through the snowstorm, about the words that had shaped his entire life. You do not stop. You never stop. Not until it is done. His father would have been proud. Dr. Yoon found him later that evening. He was in the gym, of course. It was 0400 station time. The lights were dim. The equipment was cold. Do-hyun was doing push-ups. You know, Somi said, leaning against the doorway, you could take a day off. You just received the highest honor in the galaxy. You have earned a rest. Do-hyun finished his set and stood. His face was damp with sweat. His muscles ached. His body begged for sleep. Maybe tomorrow, he said. You said that yesterday. I will probably say it tomorrow too. Somi shook her head, but she was smiling. The Coalition changed its classification system because of you. Humans are Tier 4 now. Not because of our technology or our strength. Because of something they call persistence index. What is that? The ability to continue functioning beyond expected limits. To push through barriers that other species cannot. She paused. They said humans have the highest persistence index ever recorded. Do-hyun nodded slowly. That sounds about right. Lyra published a paper about it. The Human Paradox, how a Tier 7 biology produces Tier 1 results. It is required reading at the academy now. I am glad I could help with her research. Somi walked over and put a hand on his shoulder. You did more than help with research, Do-hyun. You changed how the entire galaxy sees us. You proved that weakness can become strength. That limitations are just challenges waiting to be overcome. Do-hyun looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, his home. A world that tried to kill its children every single day. And those children had learned to fight back. My father used to say something, Do-hyun said quietly. He said that humans are not special because we are strong. We are special because we refuse to be weak. We look at our limits and we say, no, I will not accept this. I will be more. He dropped to the floor and got into push-up position. That is what makes us human. Not our bodies. Not our minds. Our will. He began to push. 1, 2, 3. SOM. I watched him for a moment. Then she turned and walked away, leaving him alone with the stars and the silence and the endless drive to be more than he was. Outside the window, the universe stretched into infinity. Billions of stars. Trillions of worlds. Countless species living and dying and evolving. And one small human, refusing to stop. 100 push-ups. 200. 300. The body said stop. He did not listen, because that was what humans did. They kept going. Always. Forever. Until the stars themselves burned out, and probably even then.